Welcome everyone. Today we'll talk about the project cost management in this video. So what is cost? What is project cost management? So we need to identify the cost and then the project cost management thereby. Cost is a resource sacrifice or foregone to achieve a specific objectives or something given up in exchange. So cost are usually measured in a monetary terms like dollars, rupee, dirhams, euros, you know, name it and we have it. Then let us understand what is project cost management. Includes the process required to ensure that project is completed within approved budget. It is also called life cycle cost. Project managers must make sure that their projects are well defined, have accurate time, have accurate cost estimate, and is realistic budget that are involved in approving. So preliminary concern with the cost of resources needs to be complete the scheduled activities. Consider the effects of project decisions on cost of using, maintaining, and supporting the product. I repeat, using, maintaining, and supporting the product, perhaps services or result of the project. Considers the information required of the project stakeholders as the case might be. A cost management plan, what exactly it is? It is just nothing but a document that describes how organization is going to manage the cost and any variances if there are. So, for example, how to respond to a proposal from a supplier that are higher than or lower than the estimates. A large percentage of the total project cost are often labor costs. So, project manager must develop and track estimates of labor every now and then. More and more organization estimate the number of people, or should I say number of hours manned they need by department, or skills over life cycle of a project. Cost management plan must be established at a precision level, units of measure, organizational procedure length, control thresholds, earned value rules, reporting format, process description as the case might be. There are three project cost management processes: cost estimating, developing an approximation or estimating the cost of resources needed to complete a project; cost budgeting, allocating the overall cost estimate to individual work items to establish the baseline for measuring performances; cost control, controlling changes to the project budget. That is what we are looking into. So we have cost estimating, cost budgeting, and cost controlling. First is before the event, estimating the budget about during the execution, and post would be the control. In fact, may I add, controlling can be done even during the execution of the project. So cost estimating, cost budgeting, and cost control is what we are looking at here. Here, what we need to understand under estimating is the input. What are we talking about? Enterprise, environmental factors, organizational process, assets, project scope statement, work breakdown structure dictionary, the project management plan, the schedule management plan, the staffing management plan, the risk register. We are talking about the tools and technique as well as analoging estimates, determining of the resources, cost, and so on and so forth. Now, what are we looking at? This is everything has been estimated as to what would be my input, what will be my tools to measure it, what will be my output. Everything has been estimated before even initiation of the project. Cost budgeting is what we are the cost that is going to be involved in the inputs. What are the costs that are going to be involved in the tools? What are the costs that will outcome for the output altogether? The baseline, because based on it will you add your profit margin. Probably it goes to the wholesaler, dealer, carrier, and forwarding agents, retailer, you name it, and God knows whatever you're looking into it. Here we come to the third aspect of cost control. Again, it is all about input, it is all about tools, it is all about outputs. So we need to control the cost. We have to have a standard budget and then the actual budget, how the variance is occurring, if it is exceeding or if whether it is within the budget. That needs to be taken into consideration. So cost estimating, developing an approximations or an estimate of the cost of resources needed to complete a project. Estimate schedule activity cost involves developing an approximation of the cost of the resources needed to complete each schedule activity. We need to calculate risk. We need to identify and consider various costing alternatives. Cost estimates are generally expressed in units of currency, such as rupees, such as dollars, such as dirhams, such as euros. You name it, and we have it. Can also measure that, such as staff hours, staff days, along with their cost estimate. After developing a good resource requirement, the project managers and their teams must develop several estimates of the cost for these resources. Estimating cost. The accuracy of the project estimate will increase as the project progresses over the life cycle of the project. The rough order magnitude ROM estimate provides an estimate of what the project will entail as far as the cost is concerned, also referred as a ballpark estimate, as a guesstimate, if I may say so, a swag, a broad gauge, just an idea. A project at the initial phase could have a rough order of magnitude, estimating in the range of -50 to plus 100% altogether. Cost estimating. The rough order estimates estimate that actual cost would be approximately $100,000, would range anything from $50,000 to $200,000. The accuracy range is much wider in information technological projects. Often, IT projects estimate the software developments are doubled because of the history of cost overruns, cost delays as such. Project managers must take cost estimates seriously if they want to complete a project within the budget constraint. The cost of scheduled activities are estimated for all resources that will be charged to the project, which is not limited to labor, materials, equipment, services, and facilities, as well as special categories such as inflation, allowances, or contingency costs thereby. So we need to come back to the three basic elements of input, tools, and outputs. So inputs are the enterprise environmental factors that's been mentioned in the previous chart that I've already gone around it. Tools are the analog estimate, determinants of resources rate, bottoms up estimating, top up estimating, top down estimating, parametric estimating, something that comes from your experiences, probably vendor bid analysis. Similarly, for the output as the activity-based estimate, activity cost estimate supporting the detail, the cost management updates as on when on basis. Let us come to the cost estimation input. Enterprise environmental factors, EEP, marketplace conditions, analyzes what product, what services, and what results are available in the market. From whom, from where, from what terms and conditions. Commercial databases, resources, cost rate information available from commercial database that tracks skills and human resource cost. Published seller price list. Organizational process assets. Cost estimating policies. Some of the organizations have predefined approaches to cost estimating. Where these exist, the project operates within the boundaries defined by the policy. Cost estimating templates. Some organizations have developed templates, or let me say pro forma standard. The organization can continuously improve the template based on the application and usefulness of the project thereby. Historical informations, as far as inputs are concerned regarding cost estimates, information that pertains to the project products or services and is obtained from various sources within the organization can influence the cost of the project. Project files, one or more of the organization involved in the project will maintain the record of the previous project performances that are detailed enough to aid in the developing the cost estimate. The project team knowledge, member of the project team may recall previous cost or actual cost estimates altogether. While such recollection can be useful, they are generally far less reliable than the documented performances, as the case might be. We're talking about cost estimates, right? What are the lessons learned from the previous projects, which are more or less similar in scope and size? The project scope statement describes the business requirement, justification, current boundaries of the project. The project and the statement includes constraint and assumption and the requirement thereby. Constraint are specific factors that can limit the cost estimate option. Most common constraint of any project is limited to project budget, required delivery date, available skill resources, and organizational policies thereby. We are talking of WBS, work breakdown structure. The project work breakdown structures define the total scope of the project. The work breakdown structure is often used to develop or confirm a common understanding of the project scope. We are talking about work breakdown dictionary, which is related to a statement of work provided, an identification of the deliverables, a description of the work under each work breakdown structure component required to produce each deliverables. The PMP, the project management plan, will be state the overall plan of executing, monitoring, controlling the project. Estimates include the subsidiary. plans that provide guidance and direction for the cost management thereby. We have schedule management, scheduled activities, resources, and their respective duration. Activity resource estimating involves determining the availability and quantities required of staff, equipment, material needed to perform scheduled activities. Activity durations estimating involve determining the total activity time, which will affect the estimates, the cost estimate, if I may say so. Staffing management plan, when and how human resources will be required to brought in to be taken off from the project, when to add and when to subtract, or probably not hire, freeze hiring, or even retrench. Risk register, the cost estimate considers information on risk responses. When producing cost estimate, risk, which can be either threat or opportunities, typically have an impact on both schedule activities and project costs. As a general rule, when the project experiences negative risk, the cost of the project will always be increasing. If it is a negatively risk, there will be a delay in the project schedule too. Let us come to the tools and techniques of the cost estimates. The analogs or the top-down estimates uses the actual cost of the previous similar project as far as basis for estimating the cost, keeping the inflation in mind. How similar the current and previous project was all about it. This is what we are looking to do so. Bottoms up estimating or activity based costing involves estimating individual work item or activities, summing them to get a project total cost. The smaller the work team, the better the estimate. And but these estimates are usually time intensive, expensive to develop too. We're talking about parametric modeling. Now, what are we talking? It's a technique that uses statistical relationship between historical data and other variables, that is square footage in constructions, required labor hours rather than number of labors, higher level of accuracy, if I may say so. That is what parametric modeling is all about it. Project management software such as costing estimates, software application, computerized spreadsheets and simulations, statistical tool are used to assess the cost estimate. Such tools can simplify the use of same cost estimating, provide various cost estimates alternatives. Vendor bid analysis method includes vendor bid analysis and an analysis of what project should cost. In case where projects are won under competitive processes, additional cost estimate work can be required of the project team to examine the price of an individual deliverables and derive a cost that supports the final total project cost thereby. What are we looking to? We are looking at reserve analysis. Many cost estimate include reserves called as contingency allowances. Contingency reserve cost to be used only at the discretion of the project manager to deal with the anticipate but not certain events called knowns unknowns. You just cannot have the knowns which is unknown and predicted as unknowns. Cost of quality, total cost incurred by investment in preventing non-standards to requirement, appraising the products or services for conformance to requirement and failing to meet the requirement thereby. Failure costs are often categorized into internal and external. Failure costs are called poor quality cost. Let us come to the third segment of output, the cost estimates as far as outputs are concerned. Activity cost estimates. What are we talking about? We're talking about activity cost estimates in quantitative assessment of the likely cost that the resources are required to complete a scheduled activity. Cost estimate for all resources like labor, material, equipment, services, facilities, information technology, and probably special categories such as inflation allowances or cost contingency reserves. Activity cost estimate support details include description of the schedule activity, project scope of work, documentation of the basis for the estimate, that is how was it developed, documentation of any constraint, indication of the range of the possible estimates as the case might be, a requested change, the cost estimate process might generate requested change that may affect the cost management plan. We are talking about activity resource requirement. We are talking about other component of project management. Request changes have to be followed through disposition, through integrated change control process. We talk about cost management plan, the updates thereof. If approved, the change request result from cost estimating process, then the cost management plan of plan component of the project management plan, we need to be updating it too if those approved changes are impacting the cost. Cost budgeting. Let us come to it. Cost budgeting involves allocating the project cost estimate to individual work teams over a period of time. The work breakdown structure is required input of cost budgeting process since it defines the work item. An important goal is to produce the cost baseline, a time-phased budget that the project manager uses to measure, monitor cost performances, estimating cost for each major projects over a period of time with the management, the foundation of the project cost control. Cost budgeting also provides for the project funding requirement. At what point, at what time, at where exactly the money will be required. So we have spoken about the inputs, the tools and the outputs, everything in tandem. We'll talk about the budgeting as far as inputs are concerned. The project scope statement, formal, periodic limitations of the expenditure of the project funds can be given in a project charter or contract. This funding constraints are reflected in the project scope statement too, and can be due to the annual funding authorization that comes along. The work breakdown structure. The project work breakdown structure is what provides the relationship among all the components of the projects, the project deliverables. The dictionary would say the work breakdowns, structures, dictionary, and related detailed statement of the work provided in identification of deliverables and the description that we talk about it. The work breakdown structure component required to produce each deliverables. Activity cost estimate. The cost estimate for each schedule activity within a work packages are aggregated to obtain the cost estimate for each work packages. Activity cost estimate support detail. The amount, the type of the additional detail supporting the schedule activities. Cost estimates vary by application regardless of the level of detail. Supporting documentation should provide clear, professional, and complete picture of what cost estimates are all about. The project schedule should include the plan, start, finish dates, everything for the project schedule activity, the schedule milestone, the work packages, the planning packages, the control account. This information is used to aggregate cost of the calendar period when the cost of plan ought to be incurred. Resource calendar is what we are looking out here. A composite resource calendar for the process documentation, working days, non-working days, holidays that determines those dates at which specific resources, whether a person or a material, can be active or is ID. There comes the contract. Contract information related to what products, services, or results has to be purchased, and their costs are used in developing the budget. Cost management plan, the cost management plan component of the project management plan, and the other subsidiary plan are considered during cost budgeting. Thereby, we're talking about cost aggregation. Schedule activities, cost estimates are aggregated by work packages in accordance with the work breakdown structure. The work packages cost estimates are then aggregated for higher component level of work breakdown structure, such as control, accounts, and ultimately for the entire project. Reserve analysis. Reserve analysis establishes the contingency reserve, such as management contingency reserve. They allow their allowances for unplanned but probably very much required changes. Such changes may result from risk identified by the risk register. Management contingency reserves are budgets and reserve for unplanned but potential change required. Changes to project scope and the cost thereof. So yes, we are talking about cost budgeting, the tools and the technique for parametric estimates. Parametric estimating technique involves using of the project characteristic. The parameters in this are mathematical modeling to predict the total cost. Models can be simple, like let's say we are trying to build up a residential home or probably few story of building with a certain amount of square foot living space or complex. One model of the software develops uses 13 separate adjustment factors, each of which has 5 to 7 points within it. Both the cost and accuracy of the parametric model may vary widely. They are most likely to be reliable when the historical information used to develop is absolutely accurate. The parameter is used as the model are readily quantifiable. The model is scalable. The model works for a large projects too as well as small projects. Funding limit reconciliations. Large variation in the periodic expenditure of funds are usually undesirable. Absolutely right. For organizational operational, therefore, the expenditure of fund is to be reconciled with the funding limit set by the customer, vendor, probably the donor, and performing organization on the disbursement of the funds for the project. Reconciliations will necessitate the scheduling of work to be adjusted to a smooth, regulated, and those expenditure. Rescheduling can impact the allocation of resources thereby. Cost baseline. The cost baseline is a time-phased budget that is being used as a basis against to which measure, monitor, control overall cost performance on the project. The cost baseline is a component of a project management plan too. Project funding requirement. The funding requirement, total and periodic, if I may say so, the annual and the quarterly, are derived from the cost baseline and can be established to exceed usually by a margin or to allow for either of early progress or cost overruns. Funding usually occurs in an incremental amounts that are not continuous and therefore appears as a step function. The total funding required are those included in the cost baseline plus the management counting contingencies reserve amount too. The output, the cost management plans, if there are any updates, it has to be incorporated. If approved change is requested, result from cost budgeting processes, then the cost management plan component of the project management plan has to be updated. If those approved by the impact of the management cost, requested change, the cost budgeting process can generate requested change that affect the cost management plan or the other component of project management plan. Requested changes are permitted and should be reviewed and dispositions through the integrated change control process. Remember, cost control, no matter what change is inevitable, success is optional. Project cost control must include monitoring cost performances, ensuring only appropriate project changes are included in the revised cost baseline, recording all appropriate changes accurately against the cost baseline, preventing incorrect, inappropriate, unapproved changes from being included in the project cost or resources usage, informing project stakeholders of authorization changes to the project that will affect the cost, acting to bring expenditure cost overrun within the acceptable limits. We'll talk about performance review meeting can be very powerful tool to help control project cost. Knowing you have to report your progress is an incentive for people to perform better. Performance measurement is another important tool for cost control. There are general accounting approaches for measuring cost performances, but earned value management (EVM) is unique to project management. Project cost control searches out the causes of positive and negative variances. For example, inappropriate response to the cost variances can cause quality or schedule problem or produce unacceptable level of risk later in the project. We have only been focusing on the input, the tools, and the output throughout the presentations, throughout the videos. We need to wind it up with the earned value management. EVM is a project performance measurement technique that integrates scopes, time, and cost data. Given a baseline, original plan plus approved changes, you can determine how well the project is meeting its goal. You must enter actual information periodically to use EVM. Was a work breakdown structures item completed or approximately how much of a work was completed? Actual start time, actual end dates, actual cost. More and more information across the world are using earned value management to help control cost. The best practice, the most successful organizations are taking a holistic view of focusing, managing, and measuring the organizational effort with an integrated combination of the best practices, best processes, best technology, and best training. Unfortunately, most organizations are not taking the cue at all. With this, I would love to wind up this video. Thank you for watching it till the end.